Story, the complicated GST slabs that gave headaches to small traders after the flagship tax overhaul came into effect was cleaned up by the government, leaving only two slabs, 5 and 18%. The new structure will be implemented from the 22nd of this month. For the common man, the Aam Aadmi means more money in hand. This, the government hopes, will be rooted into the economy, giving it a significant boost and having a revenue implication of 48,000 crores. Listen in to the Finance Minister's announcement.
Common man and middle class items में there is a complete reduction. Reduction from 18 or from 12 to 5%. I list out those items, all of whom have come to 5% from either 18 or from 12. Common man items such as hair oil, toilet soap, bars, shampoos, toothbrushes, toothpaste, bicycles, tableware, kitchenware and other household articles have all come to 5, whether they were in 18 or whether they were in 12. Reduction of GST from 5% to nil. 5 से 0 में जाने वाले items indicate कर रहा हूँ. Ultra high temperature milk, the UHT milk, chena or paneer, all the Indian breads will see nil rate. So roti kisi ke upar bhi, chapati or roti or paratha or whatever it is, they all come to nil.
Clearly, kitchen goods coming down in terms of rates there. But if you have a lot of questions on GST, because all of this is so new right now, there are a few answers that we have for you, which we will take you through. I'm going to break this up into 3 segments so that you can take it all in. Now, when will new GST rates apply? It's from the 22nd of September 2025. Important to note, except for cigarettes, pan masala, bidi, unmanufactured tobacco, these will change later. Now, the next question that people have in mind is any change in the registration threshold. No, there's going to be no change in the registration threshold under CGST Act 2017. That remains. Where will revised rates be notified? They will be notified on the CBIC website. That's where you can find all the revised rates that will help you understand the rates better, the ones that have decreased, the ones that have increased. What if goods or services were supplied before, but invoice payment after rate change? Well, if payment received after change, then the tax as per date of payment invoice, earlier of the two. If payment received after change, that is what you'll have to understand and note in terms of the way forward. Now, I'm going to introduce my guests today. We have Tamanna Inamdar, Managing Editor, NDTV Profit, joining us. Also, Ratan Roy, former Director, NIPFP, as well. I'm going to go to Ratan first. Ratan, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Before I get to GST 2.0, I want a very quick, brief assessment from you on GST 1.0.
Well, I've already named it in public. GST 1.0 was and is a ghastly and scandalous tax, not a good and simple tax. And it will take your entire show to say why. But so, yeah, it was ghastly.
Think about the current tax then, the GST 2.0. Your assessment on that, your first word on that.
Well, I don't know whether it's a GST 2.0. You see, there are 3 or 4 problems with GST. I'm sorry, I'll have to look at my notes. One is, of course, the multiplicity of rates, and that's been addressed because the rates have come down, as I understand it. Actually, there's a mistake. There are not 2 rates, there are 4 rates. The 4th really isn't a rate, it's a sin tax, 40% on cigarettes and tobacco and that sort of thing. And I think large SUVs, there's some psychological problem people have with large cars, so there's a sin tax on them. There's a 0 rate, which is very important. And the government of India seems, and the state governments jointly seem to have come to the realization that chapati is bread and therefore is a food staple, and therefore these things are not going to be taxed at all. They're going to be 0 rated. So you have 0, you have 5, and you have 18, and that's a good thing. But then whether the complexity of the GST analysis, if that has changed, that will have to wait for the CBIC notification. There is duty inversion. There are arbitrary classifications. There are value-based rates, and that continues. This is a bad habit the government of India has, whether it comes to pay of central government employees, or it comes to income tax slabs, or it comes to GST. They fix things in rupees. That is absurd and stupid. You must not fix things in nominal rupee terms because there is inflation. So implicitly then, inflation raises a tax. As the value of money goes down, then you're paying a higher tax on something that has a lower value. And there are several things, for example, hotel rooms that are priced at, 7,500 rupees or 8,000 or something of the sort. So that's just silly. And whether end use or input based, there's a difference made on whether you use something at the end or as an input in terms of taxation. Whether that has changed or not, I don't. So I'm going to wait for the CBIC notification. I will also wait for the CBIC notification given the generalized incompetence of the Ministry of Finance, because what the Finance Minister has announced need not necessarily be what you see in the notification. So let's wait. So prima facie, I'd say the idea to move to 4 rates from about 15 or 18, I can't remember, makes it less costly. The scabrousness of this tax came from the other things I mentioned that add to its complexity and difficulties in taxpayer engagement and compliance. And if those have changed, that is welcome. I haven't heard a word about them. I look forward to hearing.
Ratan, also the GST was meant to create a broader tax base with lower rates. Does the current restructuring achieve that, or is it complicating it further, according to you?
No, it was not intended to create a broader tax base. The broader tax, it was intended to make sure that taxes across the country were reasonably uniform, that you didn't pay differently for a tube of toothpaste in Madhya Pradesh from what you would pay in Bombay. And that would therefore effectively then create a single market, because there'd be no incentive to game where you sold stuff or where you bought stuff based on the location of where you bought or sold. And for that to be, and then of course things had to move smoothly across the country. An incredible amount of complexity was involved in setting up the mechanism to do so. I'm not sure that has been addressed. But as far as the tax base is concerned, the tax base for GST, as for any indirect tax, is total consumption. Total consumption is a function of total income. When total consumption goes up, then the taxes you get from consumption go up. So that is what will drive an increase in taxation, not one form of tax or the other.
Do stay with me, Ratan. I also have Tamanna Inamdar joining us from NDTV Profit, the managing editor. Tamanna, what are the big takeaways, according to you, from the GST 2.0 announcement? After which, if you have questions for Ratan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Vedika and Ratan. Good to see you after a long time. I think one thing that really stuck out for me is the speed with which the whole process was kicked off and wrapped. I mean, 15th August is when we first heard the announcement that there would be a 2-slab structure. This will now be implemented from the 22nd September. This is governance and policy making on steroids. I haven't seen anything going through this fast. That GST Council meet was supposed to be 2 days. It's wrapped up in 1 day, and there is complete clarity and communication all through, which is why perhaps you've seen the markets also rejoice the way they have, and this positive response coming in. The boost to consumption is clear. We've been speaking at NDTV Profit with a whole host of companies across sectors since this morning: cement, insurance, consumer durables, auto, the whole pack. And they are very clear that they're going to pass on all the benefits, not use this for profiteering or pad up their margins. In fact, Ratan, let me come to you on that point. What is the number that you've penciled in as the GST boost to GDP, and how does it stack up against the hit we have been facing because of a 50% tariff?
I don't think the 50% tariff has anything to do with the GST boost. So they are separate events. The GST boost would have been desirable even without the 50% tariff on output.
Agreed.
So I think, what is going to happen, and I don't trust Bombay as easily as you do, Tamanna. I'll wait and see. They talk big, but very often when they act, the shareholder is more at the center of their faces than the consumer. If they can get away with keeping prices high, they will. I have heard on my part, already in South India, sophisticated IIM, FMCG types saying, oh, well, for small packets, which is what the Aam Aadmi consumes, small shampoos, small biscuits, we will not reduce prices. We will increase what they call the grammable quantity. So all that gaming has already started. I mean, that's their right. I mean, markets have to respond in ways that they can, and so with the consumer. However, I think you're absolutely right that this particular measure will, and I'm going to say something provocative at the end to what you first said, but this particular measure will definitely give consumption a much-needed boost. A lot of it will happen with stuff that is produced in India, so there will be a producer boost. I want to, as a fiscal economist, reassure everybody that the tax hit of this measure is relatively limited and easily absorbable. I don't think it's going to exceed 20,000 crores. I think it's more going to be in the ballpark of 14 to 15,000 crores. And the government, given the numbers today, is very able to deal with that sort of thing. It's not going to be a problem. On whether this was done fast, yes, it was. And it's a salutary lesson to us that it doesn't take much time to reverse bureaucratic idiocy when there is political will. So perhaps the government would get a little more courage from this act and undo other idiocies going forward.
No, so Ratan, I just want to come back on the point about trusting Bombay. I mean, I am from Mumbai, so that's a different story altogether. I trust the market's instinct. And markets sees through tall claims very, very quickly. And it has been doing so consistently. So, for example, even on insurance, there was a bit of question mark, and I'm just going into a bit of minutiae for a second, that what will be the hit of, the lack of input tax credit, that's something industry wanted. But market has come to the conclusion that the volume growth you're going to see is going to make up for it. So, in that sense, you will agree, Ratan, that the market sentiment tends to be a very true barometer because it's unscathing when there is a policy measure that does not seem like it's going to be good for the economy and profitability of companies.
As a former stockbroker, I don't share your view. Markets exist for a very practical reason. They exist to make money. And whether in the market, I'm speaking as a former stockbroker, you make money on speculation or you make money on real-time data is irrelevant to me. So, for example, the market is indifferent to whether a company is going to make more money by passing on the GST fall benefit to the consumer and thereby producing more and selling more, or they're going to have higher margins. What does the market care? They don't care. So it's a good thing for the markets because either profitability will go up or output will go up. So the market will go up in anticipation. But two markets can be very volatile. So, and they're not sort of supreme in their knowledge. So a lot of these things depend on, for example, the kind of positions the markets will take. Now, if what you're saying is correct, then you should see a change in fund portfolio weights towards FMCG and other high GST impacted stuff. Whether that will happen or not remains to be seen. So the initial reaction of the market is the usual Bombay reaction. Ki acha khabar hai, market chada. Then you make some money, you short it or you long it and you go home. That happens to the market every day. And again, I want to point out too, the market doesn't care, rightly so. The market does not care about the Indian consumer. The market does not care about Indian firm. The market cares about profit. You can make profit by absorbing this and increasing your bottom line. You can make profit by increasing output. Market doesn't care. Either way, the market's going to make money. So good. But let's see. The real proof of the pudding in the market will come if the weights move more towards FMCG stocks. Let's see what happens there. It's too early.
Ratan, a question from me as well. Just taking a step back and looking at GST as a whole right now, not just 2.0. What would you say are the biggest implementation hurdles still facing GST, be it technology, bureaucracy, compliance costs, and how can these be addressed according to you?
Well, the biggest hurdle is that India is a low trust economy. It's not our fault. We basically don't trust each other. You can see that in the traffic every morning. Now, the trouble is that every GST system, or every taxation system indeed, that functions in the whole world of any modicum of complexity, basically says that unless there is evidence to the contrary, what the taxpayer says is true. In our system, we assume that what the taxpayer says, with good reason, I'm not questioning that, is sometimes false because there are lots of people gaming lots of things. As a consequence of which, the kinds of rules that you have underlying GST, how you file income tax, lots of routine stuff, is unnecessarily complicated for the honest entrepreneur. However, there is a sufficiency of quantity of dishonest entrepreneurs who are there not to make money through selling more, but through gaming the system, at whom these rules are engaged. There's a lot of collateral damage that happens. Our task, I think, collectively, and really here the private sector has to, step in and come up with suggestions of going on saying, ye great hai or wo great hai or wo bad hai or ye bad hai, and give suggestions on how we could simplify this system while ensuring that, compliance is reasonably even across the system. That is one. A very good example of this, I'll give you, is that today if I want to sell all India, I have to open GST accounts in every state I'm operating in.
Yes.
This is crap. And that is happening because I don't trust you if you're from Maharashtra when you operate in Bihar. This is crap. There's no other word for it, just crap. But it's not, it's happening because there is low trust in the country of entrepreneurs who you don't actually know personally or understand how they operate, you don't have levers against. Unless we are able to move, therefore, to a more systematic, trust-based approach, I think the benefits from GST are always going to be limited. That is one. Second, of course, is the fact that you have, if you are thinking of mobility in the markets, GST is not the only hindrance to moving across borders. There are at least 5 other hindrances, including environmental hindrances, etc., that movement of goods is reducing. So, in terms of getting the logistics dividend from a single market, I think a lot of more complementary action needs to be taken. Finally, I would say in GST 3.0, the dream should be to move out of the 3 baskets of complexity I outlined earlier, which is no duty inversion, okay?
Right.
No setting prices in rupees and paise, setting rates, not price slabs, right? And no contradictions, and really neutrality with respect to whether I sell a product in the final demand or I sell a product as an intermediate input.
All right.
So I don't want more of that coconut oil rubbish. Because if coconut oil is used to make luxury shampoo for a spa, I will charge them 5,000 GST.
All right.
But if the common man puts it on his head, I'll charge 5%. That's crap. Okay.
All right.
So a lot of this nonsense has got to end. And I hope the government, with this very rapid move, anti-idiocy move, I would call it, will go further in reducing or ameliorating the other idiocies that have crept into our fiscal
All
system.
right, Ratan, Roy and Tamanna, thank you for joining us on that big discussion on the GST and trying to unravel it here for our viewers. We, of course, will keep coming back to you for more insights on our top story.